to see. So I just love the fact that he's rolling up his sleeves, and the thing that really grabbed my attention was the pocket protector, because my dad in the 60s used to have a pocket protector. But I actually started my career with Deloitte back in 1988 as a cadet accountant. Now, I was a pretty terrible accountant, to be completely honest with you. So I saw an ad that said frustrated accountant, and I actually ended up getting into the recruitment industry, and now back in 1994, and I've been in the recruitment industry since then. So I'd love to connect with everybody. That's my Twitter handle, people2people, and obviously the hashtag CFO Symposium for today. I'd love to join the conversation if you've got any questions that we don't get a chance to talk about today. What we're going to learn today is, well, hopefully you'll take away a few tips on how you can get the best talent into your teams today. If time permitting, hopefully I'll get to talk a little bit about what the market is doing right now for accountants as well. But to get us there, what I thought we'd do is we'd start with a little bit of a historical perspective. Yeah. I did promise in a tweet this morning that there would be a special appearance by Spandau Ballet, and here they are. So the reason I put Spandau Ballet up here actually is I used to have hair just like the lead singer, so it brings back a lot of important memories for me with my childhood. I lived for those days. The other thing I do particularly remember about the 80s as well was the high pants. Do you see the high pants here? I just think they're hilarious. Anyway, so back when Spandau Ballet were big, the recruitment industry and the employment market was considerably different. When I first started, you would run an advertisement in the paper on Saturday, yeah, in the Sydney Morning Herald or the Age, and then you would wait for people to call on the Monday. You would then, when they rang, you would make an assessment of whether you wanted to bring them in, and if they were a marginal candidate, then you might ask them to post their CV to you. And so the process was completely different. A couple of other things that were different as well was there was a real idea about a master-servant relationship. So very much like that idea from university where the employer has all of the power, both financially but also in terms of market position as well. So it was all about the employer who had all of the power in their relationship. There was also the assumption by companies generally that there was plenty of talent to choose from. There were lots of people out there. Remember, these were the days where there were higher levels of unemployment just incidentally in the marketplace, and the demographics were a little bit different as well. So there was the idea that there would be plenty to choose from. The last thing was that the concept of that the employer selects the candidate and that the candidate would apply for a job. So that was the other idea that was very much prevalent back in the 1980s. But what's it like now? Well, there's been a few pies eaten. You can see there's a couple of fashion victims there as well. I don't know his name, but the guy in the red jacket particularly looks like he's had a troubled 25 years. But so that's where we are now. But what's it like in the employment market now? Yeah. Well, things are quite a little bit different. There's a lot of cultural and social change. So in terms of the demographic mix, so Gen X and Y and the millennials and what their expectations actually are. Now remember, we have had 23 years of continuous economic growth. The ideas that the millennials particularly have, that the master-servant relationship is dead. Oh, if I don't like my employer, I'll just get another one. I'll just get another job. I'll just move on. So that idea has disappeared in the cultural view of the candidates that are actually available. Yeah. The demographic shifts now. I mean, I won't go into. Everyone knows about the baby boom bubble that's exhausting in the next few years. We are already seeing people starting to retire. For people in this room, if you're a CFO, the biggest impact for you, or actually for the people below the CFO, the people who want to be a CFO, is that a lot of CFOs are baby boomers, and they're not moving. They're just staying right put in their job because I'll just wait until I retire. So there are fewer opportunities that are being created. But there's also a skills shift. Yeah. What I mean by that, and what a good example of this is that I was reading recently that universities are training people for jobs that don't exist. And one of the most, in the future, and one of the most interesting ones I read about was the pharmacists. So there are still a lot of people who are going into to be a pharmacist, but pharmacy will disappear in the next 15 years. But we're training all these people to be pharmacists. So there's a skills shift and a demographic issue as well. Finally, there's technology. I could spend all day here talking to you about technology. I think at this event last year, I spoke about the social CFO and about how technology has changed the employment process. So I'm not going to go into that. I think Richard has said, it is actually up on YouTube, so you can go have a look at it again. But the actual primary message out of that was that the best talent expects to be found. They don't apply for jobs and then you select them. They expect to be found, the best talent. So it's a real change in the way the market works. But what I'm here for today is really to talk to you about not the finding of the talent, because that's a completely different story, and we're going to assume you have identified 3 or 4 people that you think are great, well at least they're worth an interview, yeah? And so you're going to bring them in. So what I'm going to try and talk to you about today is how that process is different. That the question really is, why would somebody want to work with you? Yeah? Because 25, 30 years ago, the assumption was, well, everybody wants to work for me. No, it's not like that anymore at all. So why would somebody want to work with you? Blue light disco, what's going on? I just want to share a little. I'm back in the 80s. I really can't get away from the 80s. Did anybody in the room actually go to a blue light disco? Yes, I can see a few here. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a tragic story about me at a blue light disco. And the reason I want to tell you this story is that it's the recruitment process these days is more of a seduction. Yeah? You need to try and seduce the candidate to come and join you. Okay? So picture 1985, disco, a little bit of Spandau Ballet on at the blue light disco, and there I am in the room, a little bit nervous, a little bit like today, a little bit nervous, wondering what's going to happen. And there was a young lady who I was quite fond of. She started to walk towards me. This is unusual. What's going on? She comes up to me and she says, "Oh, hi Mark. Can you do something for me?" I said, "Sure." I'm thinking, she's going to ask me to dance. This is what's going to happen. This is going to be brilliant. She says, "Can you hold my handbag while I dance with your friend?" So what you don't want to be, figuratively, is the guy holding the handbag when you're in the market trying to hire talent. Yeah. So how do you make sure that you're not? Okay. Well, there's a little bit of a checklist, but let me talk to you through the key issues here. One of them is personal brand. Now, what I've got here is I've put up on the screen here social media, because essentially what I'm really talking about here is that people will look for you. They'll find you on the internet. So you will be discovered on the internet. Just as you will go and try and discover talent on the internet, they will be looking for you on the internet as well. Okay? So what you've got to think about here is thought leadership. Now that sounds like a little bit of a cliche. Yeah? How many times have you heard thought leadership? Yeah? So what does that actually mean? Well, what the candidate wants to do is that they want to be associated with somebody who is perceived to be a thought leader. Yeah? So in old speak, you would say that they want to be mentored. But here's one of the critical things. They want to be mentored by you, but they also want other people to know that they are being mentored by you. That you are seen to be somebody who is a thought leader. Yeah? So we'll talk about how to do that in a second. It's also about being connected. Yeah? So you need to be connected to a lot of people. Who do you know? Because they can see who you know on the internet now. Who do you know that they know? So you need to make sure that you're connected. There's a lot of people who are in senior positions going, not getting involved in that. I have my network. well, you're not going to get the best talent, because the best talent are going to check you out first to see how you're connected with other people in the marketplace. The last thing is integrity when it comes to personal brand. Can you back up what you say in the interview? Is it if you say that you're an innovative company, that you have very low staff turnover and very positive culture, is that perceived to be the case in the marketplace? Because people can find it easily. It's a nice lead in then to employer brand, and this is probably the biggest change in the market since I was standing here just 12 months ago. Now this is not Glassdoor it's not new. It's been around for a very long time, yeah, but it hasn't really been present in Australia. Hasn't really taken off in Australia. Hasn't done much. But what Seek have done, which is still the clear market leader for job boards, they're about 60% market share. They have taken up this idea of company reviews. Not company profiles, company reviews. So people actually can go online and write a review on what it was like to work for you, what it was like to work for the company, and it's public. So I've got a couple here that I'd just like to share with you. I won't give you the names, although you can look it up on the internet. It's public. These are from Seek. I just randomly selected it. Yeah. So here's one they're an IP, it's not accounting, so I'm sorry about that, but it's IP network engineer. The title of their review is Bad Company. 6 months ago, they wrote this review. 3 to 4 years in the role, and they're a former employee. Salary was good, bonuses were good, but depended on too many other areas of the business, that is, not directly influenced by you. The challenges: poor management and direction, too much favouritism, and corruption. Wow. Here's another one. This is ACT, 1 year ago. Employee was only in there for a year. Management is poor and does not offer support. While there's plenty of suggested support, when the time comes, it is extremely limited and more often than not absent. People have been promoted into roles they do not have the skills to manage, which results in a number of disgruntled employees who suffer the brunt of this poor management and have tasks dissed out to them which they should not be doing. Most roles are not accurately understood company-wide, which leads to hostile working environments and unreasonable expectations of employees with different skill sets. Wow. I'm going to go join that company. That's a sensational company to work for. Now, I've got another piece of paper here which is really, I think, demonstrates the feeling or what talent would be asking itself. This is on a blog, so she's asking for some help, and it's about Glassdoor, but I think it sort of demonstrates this. It says, in doing some research, I've found their Glassdoor profile has 11 reviews from 2011-13, so it's a little bit old, with an average of 1.4 out of 5 stars. Assuming these are, I can't read, this is terrible in the slide, legitimate reviews, employees, and anyway, I'll just get to the point. What she goes on to ask is, should I ask about these reviews in the interview? Should I actually go ahead and ask them about them in the interview? So imagine you're interviewing what you perceive to be top talent, and they come in and say, well, on Glassdoor they said that it was poor management and there's corruption. Can you explain that, please? You know, you're sitting there going, is this Lee Sales? What's going on? But really, so the dynamic is actually changing in the workplace and what candidates are perceiving. Oops, I'm going backwards, excuse me. So what this is really about is the sharing economy. People are actually out there, they're sharing their experiences, yeah? So there was an interesting story, actually. I've got to be careful of the time. There's an interesting story, actually, of this is from our Parramatta office here in Sydney, where the idea that our client had was that if I treat these 4 candidates poorly, that I'll in the interview, then I'll be able to assess how they respond well to stress. And this was a collegiate idea. There were 2 people in the interview, of which one person was going to just stare out the window, apparently is the idea, and the other person was going to say, well, can you get to the point, please? Needless to say, they came back and they said the 4 candidates were brilliant. We want to take, they were really good. We want to take all 4 of them to the next interview. The 4 candidates all pulled out and said, I'm going somewhere else. There's no way I'm working for that company. Now, they didn't share this idea with us beforehand, mind you. They decided to do this off their own back. But anyway. So what can you do? What can you do in this new environment? What can you actually do to make sure that you get the best talent? Well, you've got to audit your personal brand. Yeah. What does that mean? Well, you've got to get on LinkedIn, and you've got to get some advice on how do I make sure that my profile looks good. I think last year I showed a couple of pictures of people on LinkedIn who were. There was one guy I think I was chatting to, David down here, saying that he was in a big leather chair drinking a glass of scotch. This was his LinkedIn profile. Nice one. I saw an industry colleague of mine, I couldn't believe this the other day, had taken a selfie in a car driving. What's going on? Anyway, but it's beyond just the picture, okay? You've got to make sure that you have an appropriate summary that not only would other employers like to see about you, but think about how your personal brand is perceived within the marketplace, that potential employees want to work with you. They're going to look to see who you're connected with. Are you connected with other industry, and I hate using the word because it's a bit cliche, but thought leaders? Are you connected with those people? Have you posted a post on LinkedIn? Have you published? We have a blog, okay? It's got nearly 10,000 subscribers. I would love to have guest blog posts. So if you're interested in actually doing that, come and tell me, and we'll get you onto the blog. But it's that sort of thing, because somebody's going to actually look you up. Yeah. Twitter. Oh no, really? I'm the CFO. I don't need to do Twitter. Yes, you do. They want to see how connected you are, how active you are in the marketplace. Now, I'm not talking about waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and slagging Hillary. That's not what I'm talking about. You should be promoting other content throughout the marketplace. You should be connected and engaged in the Twitter sphere. Yeah, because that is a way that is the way that talent will view you in comparison to other CFOs. So not necessarily whether it's not just about you and you being a good CFO, it's about whether your competition for the best talent is. And if they are, then you're competing with those guys to get the best talent. They don't just want to work for you because that's the way it is. There's no master-servant thing anymore. It's changed. The balance has changed. Yeah? Google yourself. You've all done it. Yeah? Yeah, I've done it. Google yourself. Find out. Yeah? Put your name in CFO. Put your name and a term that you wouldn't like to have. See if it comes up. Are you on Glassdoor? Are you mentioned on the Seed Company reviews? Just as a little bit of feedback there. So those you think, well, are they moderated? Yes, they are. Is it only disgruntled employees that go on to Glassdoor and see? No, it's not. The average score is about 3.4 out of 5. It's actually it's about a sharing economy. They're actually getting involved. They want to participate. If you're a good employer, they will share that as well. Yeah, but I bet there's a lot of people who don't even know these things exist. You need to go on there. And Glassdoor and Seek, they're not going to allow it to be defamatory. So you've got to keep that in mind. Yeah. But Google yourself, please. You've got to consider your employer brand. So you would have, if you would have a lot of, if you're in the C-suite meetings and the HR director is sitting there, and you'll hear a lot about employer brand. That employer brand is because of the shift in the marketplace now, and because of things like Glassdoor and the Seek reviews. You'll notice that there are some big companies, and I was going to put it up, but I was conscious of time. There's a great ad from ASIC, actually, which is it's just not about shoes, it's about wanting to work for ASIC, about employee brand. If you want to look it up, work for ASIC or something like that, you will, not ASIC in ASIC, I'm talking about shoes, yeah. That's a joke that actually went down okay. That's amazing. Yeah, so know what others have said. And you've got to be prepared to sell your opportunity. This is not just about assessing the candidate's skills. You've actually got to flip this, to use Paul Keating's words, flip the switch to vaudeville when you go into that interview. If you're the CFO, you're likely to be the second interview, yeah? So it's not just about that. Hopefully, the others in your organisation have done their job, yeah? And you've got somebody who's got the appropriate skills. You've got to then make sure that they're the right behavioural or cultural fit, but also it's up to you to sell the opportunity. So, think about these things. Why did you join the company? Why did you join the company? They'll want to know that. Match your role to their expectations. Use your recruiter. That I would encourage you to use people2people, if that's who it is. But I'm talking about your internal recruiters as well. Yeah? Use your recruiter to find out, and if they're doing their job properly, you should get a brief before you go into that interview to say, so what are they looking for? Tell me what their hot buttons are. What are the 3 most important things to this candidate? Ask that question of your recruiter to make sure that you're on top of it so you can match that during the actual interview itself. Yeah? Whoops. And everyone loves a story, particularly of success. So think about the success stories in your organisation and share those successes. Remember, the generational change, the millennials, etc., want to be part of something bigger. They don't want just a job. They want to be connected and involved. So how do you do that to get them on board? Share some of those success stories. So success is it's not just about financial success or career success. It's success in society, generally. Yeah. Okay. So I hope there's a few takeaways there in terms of how you should actually get the best talent, why somebody should actually work for you. Yeah, the market's completely different. So now I've got just about 7 minutes, and I'll give you a quick market update on what's happening in the New South Wales and Australia, essentially for the accounting sphere. We at people2people have 10 specialisations, one of which is accounting and finance. Yeah. So I've got a little bit of information now. This information comes, I pay for an additional service, and because of the amount of money they take from me with Seek, and so they do help me, so I'll accredit Seek with some of this information. So this is very up to date, it's end of September information on hirer activity. So where the information comes from is the number of jobs that are actually being advertised, etc., and the amount of candidates that are active in the marketplace. Yeah. So we can see that in this is all of Australia, all sectors. Hirer activity is up 3.4% for September, year on year, but candidate activity is down. There are fewer people applying. That's an interesting thing. So you would see in some of the ABS statistics about participation rate, etc. So a lot of that is reflected here as well, but it also might be part of that demographic shift that we're talking about. Accounting across Australia. Hirer activity. So this is people hiring accountants, down 3.67%. But interestingly, candidate activity is down nearly 7% across the board. So when you have that disconnect between hirer and if the hirer activity, although it's down, it's not down as much as candidates. It still feels like it's harder to get people when you do enter into the marketplace. Yeah. What about New South Wales? New South Wales is back. Sydney is back, yeah, which is great news because I say that because we went through such a doldrum period in terms of, from the world that I live in terms of employment and hiring activity. For years, we were very much the poor cousin to Queensland and WA. But definitely New South Wales has returned, and in Sydney. So we're up 2.99%, up 3% year on year, which is great. But look at how much candidate activity is down. What does that mean for you and your teams? It means that when you go to market, there are fewer people. But you've got more people looking and fewer people applying. So it's good for people like people-to-people, obviously, and recruitment agencies, because that means if you go into the market yourself, you're going to find it much harder to find those people. Now, Seek doesn't really have an executive CFO category, but I wanted to put here finance manager and controller. So they do separate that level. So, and that activity is in New South Wales is up 0.29%. Which is great, and down 2.45%. If I showed you WA, you'd be shocked. It's like down 13%. It's a disaster in WA in terms of the employment. Queensland is a little bit different. We've got an office in Queensland, and the majority of the work that we do in Queensland is accounting and finance. And we've had to run hard to stand still for the last 2 years. But this year, 2016, there seems to be a little bit of activity. So it's finally starting to come back, which is great. Melbourne is strong, just like Sydney. Yeah. So we also they have a list of the hardest to fill roles in accounting. Yeah. Based on the number of applications that they receive. So you've got to keep it in perspective. It's not about search and using social media and other tools. The statistics that I'm using here are from Seek, so it's a job board thing. Keep that in mind. This is not everything, yeah? But the hardest roles to fill in accounting. So if William Buck, who are obviously a sponsor here, and are in public practice, there must be in a world of pain when it comes to filling roles, because it is really hard for public practice. So for Australia, business services, insolvency, tax, audit, systems accounting, and compliance and risk, they're the hardest roles to fill in Australia. In New South Wales, it's nearly all the same, except for some reason, it's a little bit harder to find a company secretary in New South Wales. Otherwise, it's compliance, systems, and public practice. What about the easiest roles to fill? These are the roles where you're going to get, you'll have a lot of candidates. Yeah. I'll show you what they are. Uh-oh. Finance managers and controllers. Senior finance. Based on the number of applications they receive. So if somebody puts up a financial controller job or a CFO job on Seek, it's in the top 5 categories in terms of the number of applications they receive. So you're as easy to find as an accounts payable clerk. Assistant accountants, bookkeeping, credit control. I don't think there's any surprises there. This is a little bit of a surprise for me. The management accounting and budgeting was a slight surprise for me. Okay. What about the sectors that are hiring in New South Wales? Accounting, I think we talked about. I keep going over to this side. It must be right-handed. 2.9%. You can see there. The sectors that aren't doing so well: marketing, I've got real estate and property. It's quite interesting. It's 7.27. But construction, 26. Booming. You can tell, can't you? But I mean, you always tell when Sydney's doing okay when you see all the cranes on the skylines. On the skyline, I should say. And so, yeah, lots of construction, so lots of jobs there. Science and technology. No other real surprises there. So, that's the last thing, and here's the pitch, a little bit, about people to people. This is the P2P Post. It's a market document that we produce biannually. We've got the first half of 2016 out front, so there's a little bit of information there, but the information is a little stale. We are actually launching the new one, pushing it out into the marketplace in the next week or 10 days. So if you're interested in receiving a copy, the consultants deliver a copy to you personally. That's the trade-off. It's absolutely free. It's free. It's something we give back to the marketplace, but what we want is a little bit of your attention for at least half an hour so we can start a relationship. So if you're interested in receiving a copy of the P2P Post, make sure you see the guys out front.